The bed was empty now. Its white sheets were pulled tight, a sterile square in the dim hospital light. Hours before, a patient had lain there, breathing with the help of a machine. Now, only silence remained. The room was cold, the air tinged with antiseptic and old fear. The only sound was the hum of a flickering hallway light, casting long shadows. This was a place meant for healing, but tonight, it felt like a tomb. Outside, the hospital was a maze of quiet corridors and polished floors reflecting pale lights. It was late, the world outside asleep, but hospitals never truly rest. Still, this ward felt different, an unsettling stillness, as if holding its breath. The nurses' station sat empty, a forgotten cup of coffee on the desk. Machines lined the walls, their screens dark, once guardians of life, now silent. A single plastic cup with a straw sat on the bedside table, a small, ordinary object, suddenly significant. The window looked out onto a dark courtyard, wind rustling the leaves of a skeletal tree. Inside, time had stopped. Another patient gone, another family heartbroken, and in the silence, a question hung heavy. Why were so many patients dying? They were supposed to be getting better, surrounded by care. But the beds kept becoming empty, the silence growing deeper. Staff would shake their heads, talk of bad luck, clean the room, and prepare for the next patient. Yet, the cold feeling remained. A darkness had crept into the heart of the hospital. It walked the halls quietly, wearing a friendly smile. Her name was Doris Patientia. To patients and families, she was a comfort. Calm voice, gentle touch, always ready with a reassuring smile. She worked late shifts, brought extra blankets, and listened to stories. She was trusted, liked, and no one suspected the darkness she hid behind kind eyes. Doris knew the hospital's routines, the moments she'd be alone with a patient. Her willingness to work late was seen as dedication, not opportunity. She blended in perfectly, a point of calm in the chaos. Never flustered, never loud, her stillness made her almost invisible. She could slip in and out of rooms unnoticed, just another cog in the hospital's machinery. This ability to be unremarkable was her greatest weapon. She moved through the world of the sick and vulnerable like a ghost. When a patient took a sudden turn for the worse, Doris was the first to offer sympathy, her face a mask of sorrow. She comforted grieving families, filled out paperwork, and was a pillar of support in tragedy. But the tragedies were of her own making. She was both the creator of the storm and the calm at its center. The trust people placed in her was a shield. Behind it, she committed the most profound betrayal imaginable. No one questioned her. She played the part of the caring nurse so well, suspicion never touched her. Doris Patientia was the hospital's quietest secret, and its deadliest. For patients, Doris was more than a nurse. She was a friend. She remembered grandchildren's names, brought small gifts, and built bonds of trust. Patients looked forward to her shifts, feeling safe in her care. This trust made them vulnerable. She exploited it in the most chilling way. A patient anxious or sleepless would find Doris at their side, her voice soothing. "Don't worry, I have something to help you rest," she'd say, preparing a syringe. The patient, trusting, offered their arm willingly. They had no idea the substance was meant to harm, not heal. The betrayal was silent and swift. No struggle, no cry for help. The patient would simply drift off, appearing to fall asleep. Doris would check their pulse, adjust their blankets, and leave quietly. She'd make a note in the chart. Everything appeared normal. She had mastered the art of killing without a trace. Her tools, syringes, drugs, medical knowledge, became weapons. She chose her victims carefully, elderly, frail, or those with few visitors. Their deaths could be explained by illness, their absence barely questioned. She was the angel at their bedside, but not to comfort. She was there to decide when their time was up. The friendship she offered was a lie, a trap in a place meant for safety. Doris Patientia was the architect of their final moments. The deaths began to mount, but at first no one saw a pattern. Hospitals are places where people die, especially the very sick. Deaths were sad, but not always surprising. Doctors signed certificates: heart failure, pneumonia, plausible causes. The hospital's routine absorbed the tragedies. Life moved on, but some staff grew uneasy. Nurses noticed an unusual number of sudden crashes on Doris's shifts. Stable patients would decline without warning. It started as a gut feeling. Something wasn't right. Whispers spread in the break room. It always seems to happen on her shift. No one wanted to accuse a colleague. There was no proof, just coincidence. It was easier to doubt their own suspicions. Maybe it was just bad luck, so they kept quiet, hoping the feeling would pass. The warnings were there, but ignored, lost in daily pressures. The system was built on trust, not suspicion. Doris understood this. If she followed procedures, no one would look too closely. The ignored warnings and misplaced trust created the perfect cover. She continued her silent spree, hidden in plain sight. The hospital's greatest strength, trust, had become its greatest weakness. By 2012, the number of unexplained deaths at the Johannesburg hospital could no longer be dismissed. Whispers among staff grew urgent. A terrifying pattern had emerged. Patients, sometimes ready for discharge, were dying suddenly. The common link: Doris Patientia. Hospital administrators launched a quiet review, analyzing records and schedules. The pattern was undeniable. Deaths clustered around Doris's shifts. Realizing the gravity, management called the police. The hospital became a crime scene. The investigation into the Angel of Death underway. Every procedure, every logbook, every testimony was scrutinized. For staff, it was grim validation. For Doris, the walls were closing in. Her secret world was about to be exposed. Police began a meticulous investigation, interviewing staff and families, reviewing records. A common theme: many victims were in Doris's care before death. Prosecutors needed forensic proof: a smoking gun. Doris had used drugs that mimicked natural crises, hard to detect. Investigators focused on one case: a 75-year-old man whose death was unexpected. Specialized toxicology tests revealed a powerful muscle relaxant in his system. Never prescribed, no medical reason for it. This was the unseen clue, the hard evidence needed. The drug was silent, effective, and difficult to trace. Police cross-referenced pharmacy records with Doris's schedule. She had access. The chain of evidence was coming together. The forensic findings turned suspicion into a solid case. Doris's careful planning had failed. Armed with forensic evidence, police arrested Doris Patientia. The hospital and community were stunned. How could the kind nurse be a killer? Doris was calm, denying everything, claiming she was a scapegoat. Investigators persisted, laying out the evidence: toxicology, pharmacy logs, timelines, and testimonies. Piece by piece, they dismantled her defenses. The pressure mounted. The net closed. The calm facade began to crack. The woman who once held power over life and death was now powerless. The truth she'd hidden was exposed. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Faced with irrefutable proof, Doris's composure broke. She confessed, admitting to lethal injections, describing her method in chilling detail. She claimed it was mercy, but many victims weren't terminal. Her motive seemed more about power and control. The confession confirmed investigators' fears. With her words and the evidence, the case was airtight. Doris was found guilty and sentenced to a long prison term. The trial brought closure for some, but left troubling questions. The woman once trusted with lives was now a convicted murderer. Justice was served, but the full scope of her crimes remained uncertain. Doris Patientia's conviction didn't end the story. A legacy of fear and unanswered questions haunts the hospital. She confessed to 6 murders, but the real number may be far higher. How did she get away with it for so long? The system failed. Whispers, suspicions, and anomalies were ignored. The case exposed a vulnerability in healthcare. Trust can be exploited. Doris twisted that trust into a weapon. ending lives instead of saving them. Her actions remind us that evil can hide behind ordinary faces. In the end, we're left with a haunting silence, the silence of empty beds and unanswered questions. The story of Doris Patientia is a warning that darkness can find its way in, even where we feel safest.